Today, we're going to be talking about your mid-year goals check-in. Where are you this year? We are already in June. I can't even believe it's been 6 months in and time is just flying by. And what I don't want to happen is you get to the end of the year and you're looking back trying to figure out what happened. Why am I stuck in the same position that I was in January 2025, right? We want to start right now doing that check-in to make sure that as we progress for the next 6 months of this year, that we are hitting our goals, right? And it's not just financial, it's in all areas. So what I'm going to share today is financial, emotional goals, spiritual, business goals, whatever it is you want. This is a key thing for you to check in. All right. If you are new to me, my name is Tashika Ma'at. I'm a financial coach and the founder of John My Wealth Financial, and I help high earners keep more cash in their pockets so they can position it to wealth and create a life of freedom and ease. And one of the things that I do when I work with clients is what I'm going to share with you right now is how do we check in? How do we keep ourselves accountable? How do we make sure that we're making progress? And I'm going to emphasize that word progress on our goals, because I know you're a high achiever, but the thing that I know you tend to do sometimes is to psych yourself out thinking that you're not actually achieving your goals, you're not moving forward. So I want you to pump the brakes a little bit, and we're going to walk through a series of steps of what you can do. But the first thing I want you to do is just really take time to yourself and think about where are you right now compared to where you said you wanted to be at the beginning of the year. Where are you right now compared to where you said you wanted to be? What did you say that you want to do this year? You said you wanted to save some money, right? Maybe you were like, I want to save $20,000. You wanted to invest more, right? You wanted to take better care of your health. Maybe you said you were going to go to the gym 3 times a week, right? Maybe you said you wanted to eat better, right? So we're going to talk through, I'm going to use some examples of what I set for the beginning of the year and how I did my mid-year check-in. So one of the things, if you were on Instagram, I think I shared it on Instagram before I did it on YouTube, but I have 3 words for this year. And my 3 words were abundance, expansion, and health. And I chose those 3 words specifically as like my focal point of what I'm working towards, because when I talk about expansion, expanding in terms of opportunities, in terms of network connections, and then with abundance, making sure that as I am moving through my business, because I'm still building this business, making sure that I have an abundance mindset, right? Having an abundance of opportunities, abundance of, again, connections, and making sure that what I'm doing is helping my business and my life move forward and not staying stuck backwards, right? And then the other word was health. I always say health is wealth, right? So for me, what's the point of building wealth for myself, for my family, if I'm not taking care of the vessel, right? Because if there's no me, if there's no taking care of my body, then how am I going to be able to enjoy life the way that I want to enjoy it, right? So those are my 3 words. And so I want to walk you through some of the key things that I asked myself this year. And I usually do this every year, like around this time. I kind of take a second to sit back and think to myself, okay, if I said this is where I wanted to be at the end of the year, what am I doing right now, mid-year check-in, to see if I'm either on track, maybe I've achieved some goals. Like I want to walk you through my process and what I've done. I've shared with you guys before, like I'm a big journaler. I like to journal. And lately, probably this year, I started doing like voice journals. So in the morning, I'll get up, I'll check in with myself, I'll journal and say, okay, Tashika, what's going on today? What's on your mind? What's happening? But this is also a time for me to reflect on things that I'm working towards, that I can kind of give myself a gut check of, am I actually on progress to where I said I wanted to be? So if you remember, the first word that I said was expansion, right? My goal was to expand this year. And for me, if you've been following me for a while, I won't say that I'm an introvert. I'm more of like selective with my energy and who I'm around, because I tend to give, right? I'm a giver, and then it drains me of my energy. So one of the things that I've been doing to protect my peace is protecting like the spaces and areas and people that I interact with. And so with that expanding, one of the things for me, expansion was within my business, expanding opportunities, expanding connections. So I did set a goal for myself this year to reach out and attend at least 2 events per month, right? I actually didn't set this at the beginning of the year, but I think I want to say around March timeframe is when I was like, you know what, I want to go to more events in my community. Yes, I'm online, but it's important to me to get out into my community and establish a place for myself, right? So one of the things that I did do, I actually did attend 2 events this year. One event I went to was the Black Leaders Luncheon with Give It to the People. Shout out to Give It to the People. And then another event, because of me going to that Give It to the People event, I was actually introduced to 2 other ladies where I was then invited to then be on a first-time homebuyers panel to speak to like financial management and how they can prepare themselves for homeownership, right? So I want you to see the timeline and the process of that, right? First, it started with me saying to myself, this is what I'm trying to do this year, right? I wanted to do 2 events per month. I wanted to reach out and have more connections. I wanted to meet people in my community and make a place within my community, right? That was the idea. Now, here's the thing. Did I attend 2 events per month from March through June? No, I did not, right? And I'm highlighting that specifically because a lot of times I know you're setting a goal for yourself and you're like, all right, I want to go to the gym every day. I want to do all these things. And because you didn't do exactly what you said you wanted to do, you feel defeated, like, oh, I'm just not disciplined enough. I'm not able to achieve the things that I said. But I'm gonna tell you one thing that I did to myself. When I checked and I said, okay, yes, I said I wanted to do 2 events per month. So from March till June, so March, April, May, June, that would have been 8 events. I did not attend 8 events, right? I did attend 2 events out of that time frame. Now, when I look back, one of the things that I asked myself is, okay, you didn't attend those 8 events. What got in the way of you not meeting this goal? And that's the key piece that I want you to understand. It's not about you just simply getting frustrated with yourself and thinking that, oh, I'm a failure. I didn't do the thing that I said I was going to do. It's the perfect opportunity for you to check in with yourself, right? Check in and see what got in the way. What were some things that were coming up, right? And it's not a way to make excuses of like, oh, well, I had this to do or I had that to do. It's like, really check in. Was it that I didn't plan? Was it that there were other things that I didn't factor in that, got in the way of me not being able to attend these events? And I'll share with you one of them. My daughter graduated this year, right? So we had April timeframe, we're shopping for prom. May, we had prom. June, we were doing our end of May, we were doing graduation, and then my daughter was also having an 8th grade promotion. So there was a lot of things that came up. I had a lot of family in town, family that passed away, attending funerals. So all these different things that came up, some were outside of my control, right? And that's why I'm saying it's so important for you to go back and reflect on what was it that you said you wanted to achieve. And then also asking the question of what got in the way when you were unable to achieve that goal. Because in that space of you checking in, of you really trying to understand, was it something that you could have done differently, right? Something you could have stopped doing, or continue doing, right? Start, stop, continue is like the thing. What was it that got in the way so that as you're planning for the next 6 months, you know what you can do differently, right? So that's some of the thought process that you want to put yourself through, right? The other piece for me was expansion as well, right? And I said expansion, but expansion of me getting someone on my team to support me with, creating content and managing that aspect so that I can be focused on, coaching my clients and doing more of the other CEO tasks. And I set that goal probably the beginning of the year that this is the year that I'm going to hire someone. That was something that I did achieve. As of June 1st, I did hire on someone to support me. I actually worked with her for 3 months. She was the intern for me, and then I decided to bring her on. So I did have a win, right? The other thing was my health, right? Health was one of those things. I have been working out, but I've not been consistently going to the gym. So I was going to the gym heavily, like January, February, March. Kind of fell off going to the gym, but started walking a little bit more. I probably was working out maybe like once or twice a week. My goal has been 3 times a week, right? But I was trying to be very conscious of what I was doing, how I was eating. And that's an area, that's something for me that I feel like is always one of those every year kind of, I wouldn't say struggle, but challenges of things that I consistently work on. But my mind frame, my mindset around that, especially with the health piece, I stopped looking at it as like a number on the scale. I was like, oh, I need to hit this number. I started focusing on more of like, how does it make me feel? How do I feel in this moment? And so that's what I want you to do when you're looking at your goals, because yes, you may have different numerical goals and things that you want to achieve, but I want you to also tap into how are you feeling in that moment? Because especially for someone who's trying to get their finances in order, they're, done wasting their money. If you were like, I'm done spending and not knowing where my money's going, maybe that was you at the beginning of the year. And maybe right now you thought that you would have like X amount of dollars saved up in your account, right? Maybe you didn't save as much as you wanted, but maybe the feeling for you is now you have more control and understand what's actually happening with your money, right? It's not always about the destination. And I think a lot of times we get so hung up on the destination of, oh, we didn't achieve the thing. And so we think that we failed. And I really want you to focus on the progress that you've made, right? And this is why it's so important that as you are tracking your goals, you have some form of measurement, right? So that leads me into the next part of how are you tracking your progress for the year, right? Because if you've said, all right, I want to achieve this goal, I know we talk about SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time bound. But it can be SMART goals, but it can be beyond that. Because again, as I mentioned, it's not just about achieving the numbers. Maybe you feel more calm with your finances. Maybe you feel a little bit healthier because you've been walking regularly and you don't have that pain in your joints anymore because you've been moving your body, right? It really just depends on whatever the goal it is that you set for yourself. But I want you to focus on what is that progress, right? And so when we go into looking at the things that you use to measure it, I talk a lot about having a system for your money, right? The way that I do my money system, it's literally automated for me where it reduces the mental load, right? I'm a mom, a wife, running a business, managing the household, trying to do all the things, right? And so one of the things that, as I was on this journey of building up my shift from being in that constant cycle of debt to actually moving towards building wealth, one of the things that I knew I needed was to have a system for my money. And that really looked at how I directed my income as it came in, right? So when I talk about systems, as you are managing your financial goals, you also want to make sure you have a system in place, right? So back to the example of you wanting to save $20,000 this year. What system do you have in place? How are you tracking that? So that can look like, okay, I'm saving $20,000. I'm automating transfers from my paycheck into my account, or you're automating it from your checking account into that account, right? That's a system that you have set up. Another piece of that is understanding how far are you on the journey to reaching that goal? What measurements do you have in place? Now, if you said that you wanted to save $20,000 by the year and you in your mind was like, all right, then I should have about $10,000 saved by mid-year, that system is what's going to help you track to see, are you on progress or not, right? Same thing with an investment goal. If you said, all right, I want to, max out my 401k this year, again, looking at the measurements of where you are, right? And I'm going to keep reiterating this because, again, it's also not about the numerical value. Step into how you're feeling as well. And that's where the journaling comes in. That's where you sit with yourself. What I like to do, like I said, I do the journaling. Another thing that I like to do to kind of calm and decompress is running a nice warm bath and just sitting there with some calm music on, being in my thoughts, going for a walk. is another way to be calm and be within your thoughts, really checking in with how you're feeling, because especially you as the high achieving woman, I know, because I hear this too many times, a lot of what's happening in your work life, mommy life, wife life, all of those things, the stresses, the many things that's going on in your head, all of those things tend to impact your finances as well, right? And so in order for you to be able to check in to see, okay, I was overwhelmed at the beginning of the year, check in with yourself. How are you feeling right now? Do you still feel overwhelmed, right? What shifts have you made to try to alleviate that, right? Whether it's getting more control of your money, maybe sitting and checking in, going to therapy to, really just trying to manage your emotional state so that you can show up fully, right? Those are all the different things that you can do as measurement points to see how you are. I'm actually going to give you one little cheat code of what I've started doing recently. And I remember I mentioned this to my therapist. So as I mentioned, I journal every morning, right? And one of the things that I've done is I've actually will take my journal, I will copy it, and I will paste it into ChatGPT, and I will tell ChatGPT to review the journal and to give me like the high level points of what I've said within that journal, right? And as I've gotten, several journal entries in, I want to say maybe 2 months in after I started doing this, I then went back to ChatGPT and said, review my journal over the last few months. What are some of the key patterns that come up? And what are some areas in which I have grown? And let me tell you, I don't know how I came up with the idea to even use ChatGPT this way, because I'm like, it takes memories. Like, why not just use it as a way to kind of reflect back to me? Am I sitting here talking about the same things over and over again? Am I growing? What are things that are coming up from me? And let me tell you, I was so blown away with the response that, sometimes me in the process of journaling, I'm just talking about what's happening that morning or that day or what's going on, right? But I was amazed at some of the patterns and things that continue to come up for me that gave me an opportunity to check in and say, okay, this is a pattern. How can I shift this and do differently, right? And then it also told me, like, here's some areas that you have grown in, right? I know one of the things for me, I feel like I've gotten a lot better from being this anxious, like, I have to do everything, where now I'm in this state of just flow. Like, if it's causing me anxiety, if I feel like there's tension or pull towards it, I'm not doing it. And that's one of the things that I've noticed myself. And when I reflected back, ChatGPT picked up on it and said, you're moving in a state of flow now. Like, you're not forcing things. So I'm like, I am moving in a state of flow right now. So it can be a very useful tool to help you out. So like I said, if you go to therapists or you journal, you can also use ChatGPT to be that thing to reflect back to you. But I digress on that point. But the other piece too is, when you have these goals too, I want you to check in with yourself to understand, how do you know if you're moving forward? Right? That goes back to the measurement, but that's the question you ask yourself is, okay, how do I know that I'm moving forward on this journey? How do I know I'm getting closer to my goal? Okay. Like I said, journaling it, writing it down, talking to your therapist, whatever mode of operation works best for you is where I would recommend that you go. Some of the things to reflect on too is going back to the start, stop, doing. What are some things that you see with yourself that you need to start doing more of, right? So maybe I just talked about having measurements to track your progress, and you're like, ooh, I don't have any measurements. I'm not really tracking. I'm just trying to look at the end goal. I would encourage you to start tracking your progress, right? Start putting measurements into place as to where you want to be, because you cannot measure, right? If you're not tracking it, there's no measurement there. You can't measure what you don't track. You can't find out whether you're on track, if you move forward, if you're still stuck in the same place, if you are not measuring that, right? And in order to measure it, you have to have some kind of tracking mechanism in place. So that's what I would recommend that you do as well. Also, when you go back, what are some areas that were hard for you? right? If you decided that you wanted to, again, save and invest more money, what was hard for you to start investing? Were there things that came up that you realized maybe you're like, ooh, it kind of felt tight for me when I started investing and saving? I felt like I didn't have any money, right? Those are things that you want to further explore more, that maybe your overall plan needs some more fine tuning to ensure that you're allocating the actual income that you have that's deposited into your account into those buckets as well, right? Or maybe you're putting a little bit too much into your 401k that is, reducing your paycheck, and so your other goals are not able to be met. So some of those things that you want to check on as well. Also looking at, like, what are some actions that you haven't taken yet, right? Back to my example where I said I was going to go to 2 events per month. Well, there's a couple events that I am planning to go to, one in August. I think there's another one coming up after that. But an action that I have not taken is I need to register for the event. Yes, because if I register, then I know that I'm actually going to go. And honestly, that's probably one of the things too for me. There was about 2 events that I did want to attend, but I didn't register for them. And so that's also what got in the way. So as you're planning, you want to look at what are some things that you can do or should have been doing to make sure that you're making that progress, right? And here's another one too. And I feel like I usually say this at the end of the year, but I want to bring this up now because there's a lot of times we have goals, right? You may have a goal where you set for yourself at the beginning of the year, but now you're in the middle of the year and that goal no longer aligns with what you're working toward, right? I want you to give yourself permission to let it go. I feel like when we set goals for ourselves, sometimes we're like, okay, we have to meet this goal because I said I was going to do it. But sometimes things no longer align with what you said, no longer aligns with the vision that you have, right? I always like to think first it's your vision, like where are you headed, right? Then you come down and you set the goals that you want to achieve on there, and then the milestones that are going to get you toward that goal, right? So it's a hierarchy process. And sometimes the goals and the milestones that you set that you thought was going to get you to the vision, maybe it's something different now, or you're taking a detour, a different route that, yes, it's still going to get you on the path, but it's not there. I'll give you a perfect example. So this year, I've actually partnered with a nonprofit where I'm coaching single women, and that wasn't on my vision for this year, but it is still a part of my overall, I don't say vision. It wasn't my goal for this year, but it is part of my overall vision, right? My whole mission is to teach women how to achieve financial freedom so that they can take that knowledge onto the next generation. I firmly believe that we as mothers, right, that we are the first teachers for our children, and the knowledge that we possess. Again, when a baby's born, who are they mostly around, right? Whether you're nursing your child, right? And all the things that you're talking, they're absorbing that. So I truly believe, even from my own journey of my financial journey and watching how my kids have picked up all the different things from me, I often joke, I'm going to digress here a little bit. I often joke that my oldest daughter is like anti-debt because she grew up during my anti-debt phase. My second daughter is very much like a saver. And then my first son is very much into investing. And then my last son, I always joke that he's going to be like the estate planning type mentality person. But again, back to me coaching these women was not a goal on my goals for this year, but it was an opportunity that still fit into the bigger vision of what I'm doing with Jama Wealth, right? Jama Wealth stands for family wealth. The whole mission is to create generational wealth within our families. And my belief is that we start with the women, right? We are the first teachers of our children. And so there we start with the knowledge and sharing that. So that's just an example of sometimes there's things that come up that maybe in the beginning didn't seem like it was on the path towards the vision, but it appeared. So being open to those opportunities, right? And then maybe there are things that you had that you're like, maybe time to let go of that goal or vision because it's not keeping you on the journey towards your vision, right? But this time is really for you to do more of that reflecting to understand what's truly happening, of what has helped you progress on your goals, and then what is going to keep you moving forward, right? So essentially what's been working and what has not been working, right? So as you are looking out for the next 6 months, okay, I want you to ask yourself, what are you going to do more of in the next 6 months that is in alignment with your time, your energy, and your freedom, right? What are those things that has been helping you, and what are the things that are going to continue keeping you moving forward, right? Again, going back to when you do that reflection and you see what's been working, do more of those things, right? If you know that automating your savings has been helping you build up your savings, keep doing that, right? If you've been tracking your expenses and using a budget and you see that it's been helping, keep doing more of it. You want to continue to do the things that are helping you progress on your path, right? And so I challenge you for the next 6 months, don't wait until December 31st, 2025 to check in on your goals. I recommend you do like a weekly check-in. That's part of like how are you going to keep yourself accountable? Whether it's a weekly check-in to make sure that your credit card bills aren't creeping up and you're paying those regularly, whether it's checking in monthly to make sure that your savings and investment goals are being met for the month. Really establish the systems in place of what's going to keep you on check. And it doesn't have to be weekly. If monthly, it feels more aligned for you, then monthly is what you can do to check. But try not to wait until the end of the year and then look back and be like, oh no, I haven't, achieved my goal, right? And then I want you to also step into, when you look at the end of the year, this is like that vision planning, that mindset, stepping into her. If you've heard me talk about her energy, right? I'll jump into that in a second, but I want you to step into her. What does the version of you who has achieved these goals, what is she going to be doing at the end of the year? What activities is she going to be doing? What does her daily life look like, right? I want you to put yourself into her frame of mind that, okay, I've saved $20,000. All right. Well, what does that do for her? How does she feel? Right? And her is actually an acronym. Her stands for honor your vision and your boundaries. E, embodying the woman who already has what you desire, that goal, right? And R, to rise unapologetically to your next level, right? In order for us to level up, we need to be able to rise unapologetically and not have the thought of like, okay, if I do this or I save money, then people are going to ask me for this, or rise unapologetically, right? Because if you go back to H, we says honor your vision and boundaries. I love talking about boundaries. You want to establish the boundaries of how are you going to protect your peace? How are you going to protect your energy? So as you move forward, I want you to step into this year of what is it going to look like for you? What is it going to feel like for you when you've achieved this goal at the end of the year? Because I believe that you can achieve it. You have to believe it for yourself first. But when you can step into her energy and the woman that you're becoming, you will be able to achieve that goal. All right. Hope this is good for you guys. If you have any questions, if you're watching the replay, make sure you drop your questions in the comments. But I'm going to do another check-in at the end of the year. I always do this every year, the mid-year and the end of year check-in. I want to see you guys sounding off on the progress that you've made. And if you've already made some progress so far on this year, drop it in the comments if you're watching on the replay as well. And I love to hear it. If you have any questions, again, my DMs are open. I'm talking to Instagram. If you're on YouTube, again, drop them in the comments. And until next Wednesday, here's to your financial freedom. Peace.